So are you excited about the upcoming regulations? Are we going to flourish?
We are going to flourish. I mean, anything and any time we focus on the consumer, the world is a better place, right?
Well, yes, and it seems certainly when it comes to consumer duty, people have been looking at it, and some of my readers have been looking at it and saying, well, I've already done what's right for the consumer. So perhaps, I've already read this book. I don't need to read it again. Some others are highlighting passages again and again and really going over it with a fine-tooth comb. So what is the story so far with consumer duty? Spoilers are totally welcome.
Well, I think the real story is we've only just started. I think because, you can't really have legislation that comes in such a short window and have the entire industry overnight ready for something as significant and transformative as what consumer duty is going to be for the consumer. And although there's been an awful lot of work by a lot of firms to get ready, I don't think anyone is under any illusion that this is a journey that we're on. But I think with the most positive takeaway to start with is the fact that it's focused firms on the customer. So actually really genuinely made them take a step back and think about whether they really do put the customer first. And I know that some firms get a little bit upset because they're like, but all I do is service my customer. That is the whole focus of what I do. But I think what consumer duty has made everyone do is just take that holistic view, because it's the first time that product providers have had to now take the responsibility of ensuring that the consumers or customers that they're responsible for and the products that they've got, they're actually always in the most appropriate product that they have for their customers. Never before have you had to, as a company, have the application or the initial suitability assessment being done. And then, to be honest, 24/7 for the next 20, 30 years that you have the customer in that product, you need to keep doing that check. And we all know that, not every day does a product become unsuitable for a customer, but certainly it won't be the most suitable product for that customer for 20 or 30 years. It's not possible. Nothing wrong with the product, but, people change, their lives change, products evolve. And I think that's the biggest shift we're going to see, is that people who genuinely, we can't keep up with all the products that come out. Consumers are left, massively adrift in this. No longer. I mean, actually, the shift about ongoing suitability is now with the product providers.
Yeah, I was going to talk about that sort of obligation on financial services providers, especially the ones that haven't started talking to their compliance teams yet. Let's talk a little bit more in depth about these obligations, because it's not just assessing, well, ongoing service, maybe we'll send out a newsletter or something to a client once a year. There's a whole lot more to it than that, isn't there?
There is. So I think, let's take a really simple example, which I think helps people to understand, I think, the significance of this. So, you might just have customers in a really simple current account that you're, taking £15 a month to service because they get some online benefits, some additional benefits in terms of maybe their, their AA cover or roadside assistance, some insurance that's thrown in the mix, the little packaged account that you've got. And you're paying £15 a month for that. But actually, when you started off with that product, it was perfect. And then, through no fault of your own and the product providers, you may now just have, moved to Europe, for example, and you've still got a UK bank account, right? And unfortunately, there's no way that UK bank account is relevant to you anymore. And the reason I bring this up is because that £15 a month will mount up quite quickly. And that is £15 a month that consumer could have had that money working for them, maybe in one of your savings products, for example, rather than the current account. And I know a lot of people say, oh, yes, but, if you move to Europe, that's not my fault as the product provider, surely. And I'm like, it is, because they're still your customer. So we just take simple things like that. I think the thing that you've got to really watch out for personally is financial harm, financial detriment. Because if actually you have all these customers, and we know, that people have between 5 and 9 financial products in their lives at any one time, if you're only down by 10 or £15 a month in a few of those products, times by, what is it, Helen, 52 million people, that's a huge amount of financial harm that's going on that we now have to stop.
And adding charges, etc., onto that as well for certain products.
Yeah.
So what will consumer duty then mean for customers? I mean, in my conversations with financial advisors, once actually said to me, I hope that my consumers don't see a difference because I want them to know that I've always been doing this for them. And by the way, this advisor is fully compliant, really going through absolutely everything with a very fine-toothed comb. But they're saying they hope their clients don't say, oh, suddenly I'm getting serviced really, really well or serviced differently. But, should consumers see a difference?
I think consumers will definitely see a difference. So you're right. There are some firms out there that are very good, but I think probably what we've underestimated is the level of care that we're going to need to give consumers. So my suspicion is even the best of us out there in the industry have not anticipated the level of intervention the FCA is expecting. So, just take any financial advisor or, are they, surfacing interventions when I change my life skills, at the point that intervention is required. So, if I'm slightly off target on what we agreed in terms of my retirement goal and my savings, do I get an intervention to say, Sam, you're a little bit off on that target at the moment. So, it's okay, but, if you're any further off, we're going to chat further about this. I don't think we're in the mode of proactive interventions. And I think that's the big thing that we're going to see in a few years' time. We'll all look back and realize that, the level of communication that we get is going to be in a different league.
And I take it you've already started thinking about that communication element and how you communicate to clients, not just the frequency, but how you do it as well. But how else are you changing your proposition as a result of the incoming duty?
Well, so even Money Hub, our business is actually caught, if you like, by Consumer Duty in terms of our AIS and PIS permissions, so our aggregation services and our payment services. We, even just with those FCA regulated products, must make sure that, they are value for money for our clients and that they actually do offer, a fully serviced brief, if you like, of what it does, how it does it, why it's doing it. And also, to be honest, could we do any more, especially when it comes to vulnerable customers? So, for example, could we use our aggregation and payments capability to actually surface and make it easier for our clients to actually help their customers? That is the spirit of Consumer Duty. So not the letter of the law, but the spirit is, what can you do as a business that will help, either directly the customer or to the business that you service for them to help their customer? So that's something that I think, all companies should do. But of course, with my obsession about the customer, it's something that, we at Money Hub have really put an awful lot of thought into.
Yeah, I really like what you said about could we do more? And you're obviously thinking about that at Money Hub. What practical steps can financial services providers take now to do more for their customers?
So I think the only thing you need to do really is genuinely put yourself in the shoes of your customer. So if you are the recipient of a mortgage or an investment account or a retirement account, it doesn't really matter what the product is, critical illness insurance. But if for just a moment you step into the shoes of the customer and think, right, this is the product that I'm getting, what would I expect to get now from my own business that I would find incredibly insightful or useful? And I mean, one that's really, there's some such quick wins to me. I mean, take overdrafts. I don't think people realize that actually for certain segments of the community that are struggling with, overdrafts, the banks have an enormous amount to offer in terms of, for example, quite often the first £500 is interest-free. They've got all these different services they offer, but I'm telling you, none of us know about it. It's on their websites, it's buried. So it's not that they don't offer them, it's not that they don't care, but the connection between things that you need and what is available from the very companies that are servicing you is like polar apart. Yeah. Well, we'll see all that join up, which is brilliant, isn't it? Because things that companies are doing already for the benefit of the consumer will actually benefit the consumer because they're suddenly going to know about it. So I think, there's some really quick wins to be had.
Yeah, and it's about that sort of plain English, almost seeing things from the consumer's perspective, isn't it? Because we all work in financial services. We're used to jargon. We're used to doing things in a certain way. We're used to sort of words meaning a different thing in a regulated context than perhaps they mean outside of a regulated context. But the average layperson, a teacher, a fire person, a police officer, they're not going to necessarily know what all this jargon means. And as you say, if things aren't surfaced well on the internet, how do they even know what they're meant to be searching for? And so it just seems that the communication of Consumer Duty is almost as important as actually fulfilling all the obligations under Consumer Duty itself.
I completely agree. And that's why I think we haven't started yet. So we talk about the journey that we're on. It is a journey, but, imagine all of us, just on this panel or the audience, we're all going to fall off our chairs, aren't we? When we get a little intervention or a little nudge from someone telling us that, do you know that actually we've got another account where you could earn this amount of money? And would you like to find out more about it? Because that's music to all of our ears, because there's no way we can be on the internet searching for all of this all the time. It's just not possible. So I'm very excited about, my first intervention that I'm going to get.
I like the sound of it. Well, we've only got sort of 90 days before people start thinking about how they're going to do these interventions for customers. But are there any sort of other practical steps that financial services providers can be doing right now to make sure they're ready for go live?
So I always say to anyone that's at this stage that the focus should really be on financial harm. So the first thing you want to do is make sure that the customers you're servicing are not worse off in the products that they're currently in. So that's personally where I, if you don't feel quite prepared or you're not sure, I say just start by that. Just think to yourself, is someone going to be down each month if they remain in a current account when they should have that money in a savings account, when they're in a cash ISA and maybe they should actually be considering an investment ISA? Just genuinely just use common sense and look for that financial harm, because I think really intervening about financial harm will stand your business in good stead, in terms of, the regulator, but also I think, the customer will just be hugely, hugely appreciative of just that one intervention that you might make for them.
Absolutely. Now, we have got a little bit of time just before we go into the panel session, and a question has come in from the virtual floor. What should companies do if they haven't prepared adequately for the duty yet? I'm sure this is entirely hypothetical. Should they be worried? That's a very good point, isn't it, Sam? Because sometimes fear almost makes us not do anything because we don't even know where to start.
So, I mean, I think if you're at this stage and you haven't done anything, you should definitely be worried. And I know that people believe that the FCA will start, with, in effect, the big guns in the industry, and so they probably feel they've got a little bit of time up their sleeve. But I personally think that that is not in the spirit of Consumer Duty. So I would be wary if that is the approach you're taking, because I feel that in a couple of years' time, it could catch you out. And particularly if you've got clients or customers that are in products where it is, demonstrable financial harm in a couple of years' time, I personally, that's the position I really wouldn't want to be in. So I'd say, yes, if you haven't done anything, you've got 90 days, have a little panic. And then, just like your homework, your GCSEs, your A-levels, you know what to do, dust off the books, and get on with it, really. Yeah.
Get some Red Bull down you. That's fine.
Yeah.
No, I mean, but it's a serious point, and there is a wealth of information out there. I mean, we just had the Consumer Duty Alliance launch in March. Plenty of information out there for companies, small or large, if they haven't quite grasped all the finer details yet. That's certainly, there is information out there to find, right, Sam?
Yeah, there's loads of information, but on top of that, do you know what? Even if you don't, you feel overwhelmed by all of that information, if you just think to yourself, I just need to make sure that my customers are in products that are suitable for them. I mean, it's not rocket science. If you start with that very simple premise and then think to yourself as well, don't think to yourself about all the work this is going to take and the cost. Think to yourself that anything you do to meet that need of the customer will make you invaluable to that customer. So this is investing in your business. And I'm a big believer in the fact that the businesses that will be successful in the future are those that invest in the customer. and those that are consumer focused, and also, you know, we talked about, you know, Davos, the last couple of economic forums that have been held, you know, a little bit of a joke that they say, you know, that the new currency isn't actually cryptocurrency, it's actually trust.
Yeah.
So trust is massive. So this is such a window to build real trust with your customers again, to a different level, even if you already have their trust.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust it's got to be the bedrock of everything. Knowing your customer, knowing your client, this is really sort of taking it onto a whole new level.